Hi, Gary here. You know, in my life, I've lived in places like Fairbanks, Alaska for several years, in the South, in North Carolina and Georgia. Grew up in the Northeast in Syracuse, and then I've lived the last almost 30 years here in the Midwest in the Chicago area. You know, my experience in those places is much different. Obviously, weather, number one. People are different. The kinds of activities and hobbies you can do are different. The things that are available to you are much different. You know, obviously here in Chicago, much more availability for lots of different kinds of services and activities and shopping and just a variety of things. Whereas Fairbanks, Alaska, very limited. Well, let me tell you a story about a client that we had that they told us about this after they had become a client. Well, they were looking for a second home, and they went down to the Georgia coast. We're just taking a 2-week vacation. You know, 3 days in, they found a property they loved, just said, boy, this is going to be great. They put a down payment down, bought the property, started to go back down there the next year, and hated the experience. So what happened? Well, they knew they wanted to be someplace warm, you know, not be here in Chicago in the winter. Well, they ended up buying in a neighborhood that had a lot of young people. So there isn't anybody in their age group that they could relate to. Number two, like Fairbanks, Alaska, they had very limited services there, especially in the medical arena, and they had some medical issues. They had to go an hour drive to get to the right facility for that. Third, again, limited. They didn't have the Costco's of the world and the variety of other large stores that they were used to going to be able to get a lot of the services, things they wanted. And the weather wasn't quite what they were looking for. They were looking for a little different kind of environment. And so when you added it all up, it was just a bad experience. And then they spent really 2 full years, I'll say, moving. What do I mean by that? They had to sell this property. They took a loss. They bought a property actually further down south in Florida. Worked out to be wonderful. In the process, they actually rented down there for a while. And then everything worked out, but they felt like they were moving for a couple of years, lost a lot of money in the process, and really would tell anybody, don't ever do it the way they did it. So what's going on here with buying a second home? Well, our suggestion always is, if you're looking for a second home in one of the sand states, a lot of people are, Florida, Nevada, Arizona, California, you want to probably rent for 1 to 3 months. Why? Because of all the things they experience, you want to experience to see if in fact this is the right location. Not to even talk about issues like grandchildren. You know, a lot of our clients say, look, I don't want to be away from the grandchildren that long, so I got to find a place where I can go back and forth necessarily, or they can come to see us. There's just a lot of really personal issues that deal with how you like to operate. The really big issue, which I think most people get, but not quite sure what it's going to be, is finances. You know, running 2 households, what does that cost? Now, this is a real general rule of thumb, just from our experience. You know, $25,000 to maybe $40,000, depending on the size of the home, lifestyle, and so forth, is probably additional income that needs to be there. Well, that means you have to have a much different financial picture with 1 home versus with 2 homes. And I think most of us understand that, so that needs to be done. But the other elements of this really are living there to get the impact of the emotional, social, financial, all the other aspects of living that we don't really pay much attention to as we live in our home here in the Chicago area. And those are very, very important. So you really want to rent or really go to an area for an extended period of time if you can, to be able to get the feel for what it's like to actually live there, not be on vacation. You know, it's totally different. Then buying a property, so you don't go through the same thing this couple went through. You lose a lot of money in the process, having then sell the property and buy another property somewhere else. You know, that's really a bad experience. So this transition of, getting to a second home, having 2 homes set up here and there, really takes some time. And you don't get into that forever moving phase, that you're going to go through, which is really disconcerting and doesn't get your life back on track. It's very important. Now, this requires obviously some financial figuring and so forth. So it would be a good idea if you'd like to contact us to come in and do that, or if you're looking for a second opinion about to make sure you're not making a bad financial decision, please contact us, and we'd certainly like to help you out in that arena. So until next time, enjoy.